Hey, we're back. My name's Todd. I'm the host of The Laundry List. I'm here with my co-hosts, Charles and Blake, and we welcome you. Hope you guys had a good week. Charles, Blake, everything good?
It's hot out, Todd.
It is hot.
It's hot out.
It's hot, humid, and I've already changed 3 shirts today, so yeah.
Only 3?
Yeah, only 3. They're in the back of my car, so that's probably not a good idea. But we're gonna start off by reading, as we do every week, the laundry list. And what is the laundry list? I'll have a lot of people say that's kind of a cool, catchy name, but what is the laundry list? Charles, you want to kick us off with that?
Sure. So, for those that have listened in to previous episodes, and for those that are listening for the first time, welcome. If you can identify with any number of these things, and you're probably uncomfortable, right? And the first time that I read this, it kicked me right in the gut. So let's go ahead and read these things, and if you identify, keep listening in, and you'll experience some recovery from this. Number 1 is we became isolated and afraid of people and authority figures. Number 2, we became approval seekers and lost our identity in the process. Number 3, we were frightened by angry people and any personal criticism. Number 4, we became alcoholics, married them, or both. Or find another compulsive personality, such as a workaholic, to fulfill our sick abandonment needs. Number 5, we live life from the viewpoint of victims, and we were attracted by that weakness in our love and friendship relationships. Number 6, we have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and it is easier for us to be concerned with others rather than ourselves. This enables us not to look too closely at our own faults. Number 7, we get guilt feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. Number 8, we became addicted to excitement. Number 9, we confuse love and pity and tend to love people we can pity. Also rescue. 10, we stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhoods and lost the ability to feel or express our feelings because it hurt so much. Another way to describe that is denial. Number 11, we judge ourselves harshly and we have a very low sense of self-esteem. Number 12, we are dependent personalities who are terrified of abandonment and will do anything to hold on to a relationship in order not to experience that painful abandonment feeling, which we received from living with sick people who were never there for us emotionally. Number 13, alcoholism is a family disease, and we became para-alcoholics or took on the characteristics of that disease even though we didn't pick up a drink. And finally, number 14, para-alcoholics are reactors rather than actors.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Every time I hear that, I'm so glad I'm on the recovery journey on this side of that laundry list. So super grateful. We have a very special guest today, a friend of mine, Nick Leidl, who I've met through a mutual friend named Gage, and I've really grown fond of Nick. I follow him on Instagram Live. He is a genius, and he's a comedic actor, writer, and songwriter and singer. I've watched his music videos. I think I've seen 4 or 5 now, and I've seen some of his stand-up. The guy really has the gift, and I'm super grateful he's here today because he's also on this journey that we call recovery to finding our true self and our adult self. Nick, welcome.
Hey, Todd, real quick, wasn't one of these music videos recorded at your house?
It was, and I was in it, and there was a pretty attractive girl in the video, and I remember she said, I asked her what she did, and she goes, "Oh, I'm a masseuse. I'm a massage therapist." I'm like, "Oh, well, let me get your number because I need a massage." And then I told my fiance at the time I'm getting a massage by her, and she's like, "Is that a good idea?" And I'm like, "No, it's not a good idea. It's a terrible idea."
Didn't you also, if I remember correctly, play a sugar daddy in that particular
I played
video?
a sugar daddy in the video.
And let me tell you, he did a wonderful job. It was like the perfect casting.
What was the name of the video again?
I wrote a song called "Spend Money on Her."
Spend money on her. Yeah.
The tagline is, "She ain't with me for honor. I got to spend money on her." And Todd was my lead character, and yeah, stole the show.
That was a lot of fun. I got to tell you, that was a lot of fun. It took all day to do that video. And,
as a director, there was no directing whatsoever. I was just like, "Todd, be Todd," and he was like, "I got this. This is easy."
Before we get too deep into it, Nick, give us your all your handles and all your Instagrams and everything.
All my handles. So my name is Nick Leidl, Leidl, and just at Nick Leidl, and you could find me on all the socials. Comedian, musician. I've done a lot of different things. kind of an entrepreneurial journey over the years as well. But I've been very focused lately on, and it'll be interesting, especially for this show, to kind of see why I am working on the things that are important to me now. But I was very much a people pleaser for years, and was very heavy entrepreneurial in my younger years, and was out there to just please my dad and achieve. I was always out there to try to overachieve. I was a Division I athlete. I got a full soccer scholarship, and really identified with Blake's talks about golf and how once it was all done, by the end, it was painful to get out there and play. And so for me, my father pushed me really heavily to be an athlete, and our relationship was phenomenal because I was daddy's little star. I dominated everything. I was also a tennis player, and I played Division I tennis as well. And it's so hard for me as now a 44-year-old adult to realize now we'll just call it the recovery of all this, that the day my relationship with my father ended was the day my soccer career ended. We never really were able to connect after that. And I find one of the toughest fights for me is this seeking of adoration. But once it's all been peeled back through a lot of therapy and stuff, I've realized that I'm really specifically seeking his approval. And it's just very, very interesting. That should not have probably been my intro, but I went right into it because.
Well, I appreciate it because we're here.
I wear my heart on my sleeve. That's how I do, man.
And we're here to share our experience and what we did to change some of those hurtful experiences we had as kids. So when you were playing sports at a young age and you were playing soccer, if you had a horrible day out there. Would you feel shame and would you feel bad about yourself, or would your dad criticize you, or what'd that look like?
It wasn't so much the criticism, but it was honestly, I think it was a combination of his guidance plus maybe my own seeking of adoration and knowing how much pleasure it brought him to see me achieve. So that to the point where I had no concept of team. I never cared about. I was always like the star in my own head. I always knew that I would get to the highest levels, and I never. So there was never any fun, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It was all about accolades for me. It was all about accolades. I was out there on that field to score the goals, to see my name on the newspaper, to have those college recruiters in the stands, to make my dad proud. I mean,
it became your identity.
It was my identity. Right. I'm working with this phenomenal therapist, and he told me, I told him a lot of this, and he said, I want you to take a soccer ball, and I want you to go to the field. Because I wouldn't touch a soccer ball for 20-something years. Will not touch it, don't want to be around it. Despise when I hear specifically Americans, because let's face it, in a lot of ways, growing up, like soccer was more of a European sport. My father was a European Hungarian immigrant. I can't stand when Americans are like, oh, dude, you want to go to the bar and watch Manchester United? I'm like, oh, you're posers. I can't be, or I hate it. And I identified a lot with how Mark feels about, UFC. It's the same thing. It's like it actually takes me to a very dark place, very competitive place, and I can't enjoy it.
Right.
But this therapist, he told me to take a ball, go out to the field, and see what happens. And I happened to be visiting home. So I tell him, I'm like, well, I'm actually going to one-up you. I'm going to go out to the field of dreams. I'm going to go out to my high school field, take a ball with my belly hanging over my freaking Umbros, and I'm going to walk out onto that field, and I'm going to see what happens. And you know what, guys? I was out there for maybe all about 3 minutes, and I actually started crying. But you know what made me cry? Is to look up in the stands and remember exactly where my dad would stand. He would always go to the top of the bleachers, away from all the other parents, almost as if symbolically he was better than them and I was better than them. And the therapist even pointed out, it's like he almost took the role of God in my life, like talking down, shouting instructions as so many, sports parents do. He would just stand and scream, and he would belittle the coach, and he would tell me what I'm doing wrong. And I knew nothing other than what he taught me, so his word was God. If he said that I needed to go down the left side of the field, I would go down the left side of the field. But what's really interesting is when sports ended, I started to realize that same harping of his every word suddenly didn't relate anymore. Suddenly, he didn't know me as a person. He didn't know anything about business. He didn't know anything about dating. He didn't teach me any of those things.
So it sounds like you were very close when you were,
we were so close, and it breaks me. It breaks me that that's what the foundation of the relationship was.
And so, as an adult, you just what, didn't talk as much? You just lost
nothing.
contact?
I mean, I'll give you a great example. My freshman year, we're playing Bucknell in a big game, and I was not getting much playing time. And this is freshman year of college. My dad drove 6 hours to go to the Bucknell game. The only parent in the whole team that decided to take the ride to go to Bucknell watches his kids sit on the bench. Okay? Now, there's that. All right? 2 years ago, I shot a comedy special for Netflix, produced by Barry Katz, the biggest accomplishment that I was going to have, right? I was like, Dad, I'm shooting a comedy special for Netflix. This is incredible. This could change. And it wound up not going to air, and the whole thing died on me. But he was like, okay, that's cool. And I'm like, it dawned on me later. He didn't care. Like, that's not his thing. That's not his baby.
Yeah, right.
If I was playing in a freaking over 45 soccer league, he would have been there, and it would have been like, this is amazing.
But how did it affect you when you didn't get the approval?
It affected me terribly. And then when the whole thing kind of crumbled on me and didn't really go the way I wanted to, I started to realize, and again, over time and over therapy, I started to realize, like, why am I up on stage? Who am I trying to win? Do I care about all of them? Or am I trying to replace some kind of void that happened through, a pretty tumultuous childhood that I had? And it's been clear as day that that's what the case is. And similar, again, take it back to Blake's story. I mean, I've been open with you. Like, I kind of walked away from comedy for the last 2 years. I got into singing. I tried other things because I was so frustrated. But now that I'm doing this work and I'm really getting sense of it all, I'm excited to go back to comedy because I know that I'm going to be able to really kick some ass now because my head feels clear.
Well, and you have a lot more material doing this work, too.
Yeah, it's real stuff. Right. I mean, I'm not telling dumb jokes now. I could talk about me and the pain and the depth.
Well, don't discount yourself because you are a phenomenal musician
Thanks,
and you do great music videos. I encourage you all to go out and watch his music videos. They're very entertaining and thoughtful, and I can't believe you write them all and do them all and play guitar. I want to get into, they say you marry one of your parents and you become one of your parents in the relationship. Who did you marry, your mom or dad, in your marriage?
So I would say both of those happened. So I married my mother, and it went awful. It was pointed out, again, I'm so thankful, and I don't want to mention his name because it's all private stuff, but this new therapist that I work with has been changing my life. And he pointed out to me, I kind of give him a summary of all the women that I've dated in my life. And we've pointed out that, my type, my archetype is a 5'7" brunette with big boobs. And he peeled it back, and he was like, tell me about your mother. And I was like, you mean the 5'7" brunette with big boobs? I have just been dating mom after mom after mom after mom, and it's crazy once I put it all together, like to the T. They're all 5'7" big brunette, you know what I'm trying to say, big boobed brunettes, and it's like. And once he pointed that out to me, I mean, it's so obvious, right? Because like you said, we all find either mom or one of the, but it never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that I was always finding these sort of chaotic women that all looked the same. You could line them up and it's laughable. They all look like my mom.
And your mom, you guys fought a lot as a kid?
Yeah, we had no relationship, and she passed away 4 years ago. And, it was nice that she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and in that 7-week period before she died, we became very close, and I'm fond of that memory. That all those years of awfulness, we were able to really connect.
Heal.
But it's hard. Here's why: because she wasn't the same person, right? So she was beaten up by that point.
She was very
Cancer
sick.
had totally had her, so she didn't have that fight in her that she always had, that control, that dominance. And so, yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot. How I'm happy that I got that memory because there's some closure in it, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, when I peel it back, there was never anything.
What'd you love about your ex-wife? Why'd you decide to marry her, and why'd you fall in love with her? What laundry list trait did you go after? Did she were you looking for validation and approval? Was it excitement because you guys fought? I mean, what was
Todd, it was 5'7" and big boobs.
I was like, checklist done.
Yeah.
No, but basically for me, what it was she was just such a project. I mean, if I was to pull back, right, and really look at it, she was such a project. But the roots of the project were phenomenal, right? I mean, she was super. She was a Turkish girl. Listen to how interesting this is. She was a Turkish girl who was visiting New York City for vacation. Sits down next to me on a bus. We start talking. We used to take these little shuttle buses from New Jersey to New York because you didn't want to drive your car into Manhattan. I sit down next to her on the bus. We start talking. I get her phone number. I couldn't even pronounce her name. She just blew me away with like her stories. She had just finished a relationship with a famous soccer player that played for Barcelona. Like I was so intrigued by like all of these like cool things that I was so clouded by how how I knew we would clash. Like once it was all said and done, I'm like, this is not going to work. And it didn't. And it was really damaging.
So how long before you moved her in?
Todd, she was in my house within like 5 weeks.
So she pulled the Charles. It was the Charles playbook.
And maybe Charles has like a big, beautiful house. I was living in a studio in Manhattan, so I'm like sharing my my little one-room studio with another person, and she's drinking all night, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get her to stop drinking. Yeah, that didn't happen. Like instead, the drinking kept going higher, and it was just a nightmare. So she would spend all my money. She would go into my wallet, just take my credit cards and go spend it. I'm like, we're not even married yet. And I was like, okay, like I didn't see anything wrong with it because that's the type of stuff my parents used to do. My mom would just take my dad's card and piss him off. And I'm like, okay, this must be normal.
Yeah. Todd, we call that the first date dinner, second date U-Haul.
Right. Yeah. That's our next podcast, by the way. That's
second date U-Haul.
That's a great name for a podcast.
I love how Charles' face lights up when we talk about the move-ins.
I identify with what
you must have so many of them.
Yeah, and just taking your money, taking your credit card.
And that's the thing. It's not like I had a lot, but she still had no problems.
And the funny thing is, like, we don't say anything. Like, we're like, oh, okay, have fun. All we want them to do is like love us, approve of us, think we're cool, and not leave us, right?
And you know what she would say to me is fascinating. You'll appreciate this. I would be like, you can't take my credit card. Like, what do you do? She'd be like, the last guy I dated, which was a famous soccer player that played for Barcelona. Yeah. She's like, he used to just buy me Range Rovers and stuff. I'm like, you can use my bus pass. Like, I don't know. What do you want me to do? Like, I'm just me, But I found that because of that pressure, it kind of forced me to like want to just satisfy her, just shut her up, even though everything on paper was a nightmare. Like it was just, it was terrible. And I remember walking down the aisle and thinking, what's the worst thing that could happen? First of all, I remember walking down the aisle and thinking, this isn't going to work. But then I remember walking down the aisle and thinking, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it all happened. I was so broken by the time we divorced. I had no confidence. I had no swag, nothing. It was all gone. I'm like, everything bad that could have happened has happened.
What a great question to ask while you're planning on spending the rest of your life with someone, right? Which is the ideal situation about marriage. Well, what's the worst thing can happen? What's the worst can happen? I made a lifetime commitment to this woman. What's the worst?
That's such like a guy thought too, right? Like we're all afraid of commitment somewhere along the lines, and it's like, but I'm like, what's the worst that can happen?
It's such a relative question for the individuals listening and all the people sitting at this table that identify with the laundry list. We understand the 5-week move-in. We understand the second date U-Haul. We understand like the question I asked you a couple nights ago. How long was it until your credit card was in their hand? A week, right? And she has yours.
So ridiculous. I mean, if you think about it from the outside, it's so insane. Like there's no boundary.
How do you close the deal as quick as possible and with no escape route? Right. She's not escaping.
Yeah.
Because you've watched every Law and Order. She's not going anywhere. Like you know how to keep her trapped in your apartment. And so, how did your ex get along with your mom? Interesting question.
Very interesting question. My mom hated her. My mom. absolutely made it clear that I was disgracing her by bringing home a foreign woman. How could you bring this girl into our family? She's just using you. All this other stuff, like, made it very hard. And I'm so open about this stuff. I probably should lie, but I mean, it breaks my soul to have to admit that.
Right.
But of course, yeah. So right off the bat, I have
put
this
you in a tough
crazy
position.
girlfriend. I have a mother who hates me and hates the girlfriend. I hate the mother. I'm trying to, like, and then you start to get fueled by all that anger, right? So then it's like, well, I'll show her. I'll turn this girl into the most greatest wife I ever, because I'm going to show my mom that you're wrong. And instead, that girl ruined me, and then my mom did I told you so, and then it was just, it was a nightmare.
So you were juggling a lot of balls there. You were
Yeah.
juggling your mom, your wife. You were trying to dance and people please.
Yeah.
And put it all together, right?
And then trying to have a career in entertainment, which every single day everybody's telling you that you're useless and no good, and you're getting
exhausting,
rejected
huh?
left and right. It's horrible,
Yeah.
man. Of course, it broke me.
It's exhausting. I mean, just talking about it is exhausting.
Sorry.
And yeah. I just got out of a nap, so I'm okay. I got another few hours left in me. So you did your Netflix special. You told me about that. And with COVID, it didn't air. But so when you look in the future, what does Nick's career look like?
That's a great question. I think right now, because my brain is finally starting to clear up, I am content with just finding a Nick that can actually wake up in the morning and say, I am enjoying things. That's where I'm trying to get back to. I went into a swimming pool like 10 times in the last 2 weeks. I never went into a swimming pool since I was a child, but I was like, you know what? I want to do things that somehow are supposed to bring me happiness. So it's a two-step question, because I feel that first that has to happen before I can go out there and really kick the ass and deal with all of these things that I'm talking about, right? Because once I go back to comedy, that rejection is going to start instantly. But I want to be at a better place where I can say, hey, you know what? It's okay, Nick. Like, you're not doing this. I used to hate comedy, but then I realized it's not comedy that's making me feel the pain. It's this childhood stuff that we talk about, and it's this need for adoration, right? And it never healed itself. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully feeling that there's some healing.
So if you do
there.
what you love to do, the rest will take care of itself. So
That's
as
what
long
they
as
say.
you're whole and you're not broken and you feel good about yourself and you're doing something that you love and you're passionate about, the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, Blake, what do you have to add to that?
No, I think, what he's saying about, sports and all of that is true for me, and I think true for a lot of athletes, because I think we're just, tired of the way that, we're feeling. And you don't even need your dad to criticize you, because your performance, you already know. He doesn't even need to say it. Just look at you, and I think as far as, life and what just be nice to, we say it all the time, be nice to my friend, right? Like,
Be nice to ourselves.
if you can look at the end of the day, look at yourself in the mirror and, be happy with who's staring back at you. I think that's all that matters.
And it's interesting. You asked, like, what's next? Like, simplest things as, like, being able to join some kind of over 40 soccer league and just not need to be the star of the team, but just show up there and not worry if it doesn't go amazing, but just to actually be able to. I mean, something that completely dominated my life for 21 years and then has been no part of it. The idea of maybe being able to go back and find some kind of connection to it is really exciting to me. And that's how I also feel about comedy, and that's how I feel about a lot of things, music as well.
Yeah,
So.
I think as I get older, and I'm in my early 50s now, I find that doing things that I really want to do and enjoying them, and a lot of times they're the really small things.
Right.
It's like just hanging out with my dog on the couch. It's sometimes just watching the baby hawks in the morning, learning to fly. I mean,
Isn't
it
it
can be
beautiful? Yeah.
something so simple, where I used to think, like, I had a father similar to your father, and it was like I always had to perform and had to be accomplishing something. And it's like, if I told my mom or dad I was doing that as a kid, they'd be like, "What are you wasting your time for?
Right.
Get to work, start studying, go practice. What are you wasting time for?" And I had that mentality as an adult for so long. Like, if I'm not producing something, I'm not making money, I'm not advancing my career, what the hell are you doing it for? And now it's like I can do these things, like this podcast. We're not doing this to make money. We're doing this to help people and to help ourselves, to heal. And that's, for me, the back half of my life is about doing what I want to do and helping people.
Yeah, I used to have so many dark moments where I would, think like what motivates me, what is the level that I want to get there. And my family was relatively poor, I would say. We got by. But I remember I worked my ass off in my early 20s, and I was able to buy myself an apartment that was essentially, about $1 million apartment overlooking Manhattan. But at that time, I was a different guy. I was like so motivated by stuff. I wanted to impress you and you and you. And I knew that if I had this apartment, I was better than you because you don't, right? But I remember walking into that apartment the day I got it. And it's similar because it makes me laugh because it's similar to the wedding thing. And I walk into the apartment and I walk in and I stand out on the balcony. I'm looking at New York City and I'm like overlooking the water and I'm like, this is good, but living on the ocean would be better. Right. And I remember having that thought and I'm like, I am doomed, man. Like, how am I ever going to be happy? Nothing makes me happy. And it's like, that's why I appreciated what you just said, because it's like so many of us maybe are fooled that stuff can do it. And the stuff just runs out, man. It doesn't. So
yeah, I have so much experience with that where I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough.
Never.
And people will look at me and go, God, you've had such a great career. You've done so many things. And I'll look at them going, you have no idea. No idea what a loser I am. You have no idea how much I failed in my career, in my life. Talking about your dad, I just sold a company my dad invested in, and I made him $1 million. $1 million. He didn't do anything. Just wrote a check, and I gave him $1 million more than he put in. And the first thing he said to me is, I thought we were getting more.
Right.
yeah.
I thought we were getting more. And I immediately like, that's my dad. But I love him for exactly who he is, and I don't take it personally like I did when I was a kid. That stuff used to wreck me,
right,
even as an adult for years. And now I look at him like, that's just my dad, and I love him exactly the way he is. Doesn't mean I need to be with him 24/7, because he is still a trigger and my mom's still a trigger. And, I still have a lot of triggers out there because it does bring back the childhood memories. Like you said, sitting in the soccer field, that like you saw your dad. Yeah. You saw your dad, and it brought back all those feelings and emotions. And you're like, okay, 3 minutes, that's enough.
Well, it's crazy, right, that I saw my dad, but I didn't see me, right? In that imagery, It wasn't like, man, I remember fun. I remember happiness. I remember him.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was trying to achieve. And it's no knock on him. I mean, he did his best, right? We keep talking about that. Like, he did his best.
Yeah.
He didn't
know any different.
That's his thing. That's how he knew to connect to me. But it's interesting how it messed me up.
Right.
Because I couldn't find my own identity. So anyway.
Yeah.
I think of Mark's story, right? So Mark went back and actually did a little bit of wrestling, and he found some enjoyment. He found some peace in it. You go back on the soccer field after doing this and identifying these things, and you're crying and enjoying soccer and thinking about your father up in the stands, not as the one critiquing you and telling you that you're not good enough or you're not performing bad enough. And, and we're finding enjoyment in the things that we swore off because it was ruined by these things that we discussed earlier. That's fascinating.
Like you, Nick, I took 20 years off of tennis. And then I started playing and started enjoying it. No tournaments, just not even playing sets, just hitting the ball, playing baseline games, and just getting out there. And I'm really enjoying it now. But I mean, I had a hernia when I was 12 years old, and I remember asking my dad, like, how do you get a hernia? He's like, oh, you just hurt yourself. But when I found out later, it's like it was all the anxiety and stress, created that. And I don't know about you, but like I can't tell you how many nights before a match I would like be tossing and turning and just so nervous. The feeling in the stomach, similar to when you're thinking you're going to break up with somebody, right? Mm-hmm. That feeling of like anxiety and abandonment, like the night before a big match, you're like, holy shit, like this is it.
Sleeping on a lead.
Tennis is brutal simply because, and I'm sure golf is the same, but I always compared tennis to soccer a lot. Like tennis was so brutal because it's just you. You have nothing to blame anything on except you. You go out there, and if you're
I would find other things to blame. I would blame my dad.
Sure.
I would blame my dad in the stands. I would blame the wind. I would blame the court. The net was off a little bit. Anywhere but me. Anywhere but me. Literally, yeah. They strung my racket a little too tight. They used the wrong kind of gut. I mean, I literally played that game where, yeah, I would have won if this would have happened or that would have happened.
But I mean, I'm sure we have those same memories of being in those under 12, under 14 tournaments
Right.
where you're just there and you see all the other kids with their parents. It's brutal. Like when you think about what the mental pressure that puts on you.
And I
when
got a
you're-
lot of friends now who their kids are, top tier tennis players in the country, and I watch them and I'm just like, oh God, thank God I'm not in that, because they're living it right now, and I'm like, I do not want to go back there.
It just sucks because it has to end. No matter what level you get to, at some point you're going to have to stop all that craziness, and then you just have to live. And that's what's so hard about all of this. I mean, that's the commonality of all these stories,
Yeah.
right? Is eventually you just have to go and be a human, and it's hard when you've only focused on one big thing for so long. Anyway,
Before we wrap up, Nick, give us a little bit of color on what music videos have come out this last year, where to find them, and then the one that I was in. When's that coming out?
sure. So I'm about to release another single, a song called Country Frame of Mind, that's going to be coming out late September. I also have a project that I'm very passionate about that it's a surprise project, but I wrote a tribute song to my best friend who died in 9/11. And with 9/11 coming up, the song's called Happy 21st Birthday in Heaven. And I'm going to be dropping that right around 9/11. Kind of more, not a typical release. Like I'm going to just do a live video acoustic version of it. So I'm
And
excited.
where do we find that?
That'll be on all my socials, YouTube, and stuff like that. And then, like I said, I have this song called Country Frame of Mind coming out. And then I'll be following that up with, it looks like once and for all, as I'm clearing my head, I'm going to start dropping clips of my stand-up special as I'm preparing to write a new one. I'm working on that as well. And you'll see me out by the pool, hopefully, and you'll see me on some soccer field being like, who's that creepy dude crying and pointing up at the stands? That'll be me. So if you're driving by a soccer field, you see me, stop by and, say hi.
Enjoying life. Nick, you're enjoying it. Thanks for being on today.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
We are the Laundry List. Please be nice to my friend today. We love you, and we will see you next week.